Hello, how are you? Of the Lancaster Township Zoning Hearing Board to order. First ask to read the agenda tonight, and I will do that. We have one matter of new business. Cody Hurst and Ethan Summers have applied for variances to permit the conversion of a single-family dwelling unit into a 4-unit apartment building at 909 East King Street, Lancaster, PA. At this point, I would like Mr. Locurdo to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we first have minutes from the June 23rd, 2026 meeting. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, I move that the minutes from the June 23rd, 2026 meeting be accepted as written. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So admitted. Okay, our first matter concerns 909 East King Street. Is someone presenting?
Yes, I'm
please.
the applicant.
Ms. Hall, I have a few exhibits I've pre-marked,
Okay,
and we will have the zoning officer sworn in.
very good.
Um,
And then you're welcome to take them.
Yeah.
You're
Just 1
welcome to
second,
take the
Claudia.
table.
Just for the
Yes.
record, I've pre-marked what's zoning hearing board exhibit 1, which is a copy of the application with the exhibits. Zoning hearing board 2 is the proof of publication of tonight's hearing. Zoning hearing board 3 is a verification of posting. John, why don't you stand and get sworn in?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And can you just state your name for the record and your position with the township?
John Dowling, zoning officer for Lancaster Township.
And did you complete what has been marked zoning hearing board exhibit 3, verification of posting?
Yes, I did.
And was the property posted tonight with the notice pursuant to the municipality's planning code?
Yes.
And this is your verification indicating that was done?
Yes, it is.
And I did do the proof of publication, but is it your understanding that tonight's hearing was also properly advertised in LNP?
Yes.
Okay. And then zoning hearing board 4, I think this was prepared by township staff, and it shows the adjoining property owners and the notice that was mailed to the adjoining property owners. So those are the township exhibits. And maybe just for the record, before Ms. Shank goes forward, I think the township wants to participate. And I don't think anybody else in the audience that would want to be a party that are all with you,
They are.
Claudia. So I don't know, Susan, if you just want to state for the record that.
Sure. Okay. Good evening. My name is Susan Pfeiffer. I'm an attorney with the firm of Apple Yost. I'm here on behalf of the township this evening.
And do we usually swear all the witnesses in at the beginning?
You can.
Yeah.
If anybody who's going to testify, if you raise your right hand, please. Do each of you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I do.
All right.
All right.
Yep.
Susan, I don't know what's the most comfortable way for you. Do we want
You
to
have
share
an
the
objection
table?
in mind.
Yeah, let's do that. All right, good evening. I'm Claudia Shank. I'm an attorney with McNeese, Wallace & Nurick, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicants in this matter, who are Cody Hurst and Ethan Summers. We're also joined by Todd Smee with DC Gone Associates. He is the land planner for the project. If you turn to what has been marked as Exhibit 1 in your packet, you will see an aerial map of the property that's the subject of the application. It's located at 909 East King Street. It's 0.16 acres, or roughly 6,800 square feet, and it's in the township's local commercial zoning district. As you can see on the aerial map, it is a narrow, elongated lot in an urban context. It's improved with an existing 2.5-story frame dwelling, as well as some paved and concrete areas and walkways. It's our understanding that the dwelling on the property has been vacant for more than 10 years, and prior to that was used as a boarding house. The applicants have purchased the property. They're proposing to adaptively reuse the building as a 4-unit apartment complex. This is, we believe, a modest and context-sensitive infill housing proposal that can return a vacant and underutilized property to productive use while preserving the residential character of the neighborhood. And we'll talk about how we intend to do that. I also do just want to point out that the county's housing data really does support the need for additional housing options within this township specifically, as well as within the county as a whole. The county collects vacancy rates for each municipality, and the data they have currently available for Lancaster Township notes a 2.56% housing vacancy rate in the township and concludes that 55.72% of renters are cost burdened, meaning 30% more of their gross income is spent on housing. So again, just to underscore some of the reasons why we think additional housing opportunities, especially for conversion of a vacant building, are appropriate in the township. The relief that we're going to request tonight is all in the form of variances. So we are requesting a variance from section 280-702, and that would be to permit the multifamily use in the local commercial zoning district. We're also requesting a variance from section 280-704B, table 7-1, to permit approximately 79% lot coverage on the property where 70% is permitted. That's what was advertised and included in the application. We're actually going to seek to amend that request this evening to reduce the amount of the variance to 77%. So we did try to take a look, understanding some of the zoning officer's concerns at the plan, just to see if there was anything we could do to reduce the amount of impervious coverage, and we were able to make some small reductions to reduce the relief that's needed there. We're also asking for a variance from section 280-704C1, table 7-2. That's to permit side yard encroachments where there's a 6-foot minimum side yard setback. A variance from section 280-1303B to permit fewer than 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. We're proposing 7 parking spaces where 8 would be required. A variance from section 280-1307B to permit the parking facilities to be within 10 feet of the existing lot lines as they are today. And then finally, relief from section 280-14 of the zoning ordinance, and that deals with planting strips, screening of residential parking compounds, and screening of dumpsters and waste receptacles. So with that by way of background, I'm going to have Todd come forward to testify. All right. Can you state your name for the record, please?
Todd Smig with DC Gun Associates.
Could you spell that, please?
SMEIGH.
And how long have you been employed at DC Gum?
Since 1988.
What are your responsibilities there?
I serve as president, and besides running the company, I do get involved with running some projects, managing projects, doing zoning hearings, training staff, etc.
And you're familiar with the property that's the subject of the application?
I am.
And you assisted in the preparation of the plan for the site?
I have.
So I would ask the board to recognize Todd as an expert in land planning.
Township have any objection?
No objection.
I think the board can recognize him.
He is so recognized.
Thank you. So I'm going to refer you to Exhibit 2 in the packet. Is that a plot plan showing the existing condition of the property?
Yes, it is.
What are the dimensions of the lot?
Well, the front width is 39.81 feet. The rear width is 39.97, and the line is going at an angle on the west side against 907 East King. We have 169.29 feet, and on the east side, next to 911 East King, we have 177.02.
So it's a relatively narrow lot.
Yes.
How's the property currently zoned?
It is zoned local commercial, LC.
Can you describe the existing improvements on the property?
There's an existing 2.5-story dwelling. You can tell it has some age to it, but at one time I'm sure it was very stately. At the rear of the property there is a stucco garage and some macadam, which was placed behind and beside the garage to provide some off-street parking area. There's concrete walkways, huge porch out front.
Can you describe the neighborhood where the property is located?
This particular property is situated within an existing built-out mixed residential and local commercial corridor of East King Street. This is an established urban street with sidewalks. All of the buildings in this block especially are closely spaced between one another. It appears that the development pattern and the way this area of East King has been developed predates the current zoning ordinance, just by the age of the structures, if nothing else. So the immediate block contains buildings, a lot of residential use. There's one commercial use I'm aware of in this area, and there's some garages in the back.
So I'm going to turn to Exhibit 3. And this is 6 photographs that have been marked collectively as Exhibit 3. And I'm just going to ask you to go through each of those photographs and explain what's depicted to the board.
Certainly. The very first photograph is the front of 909 East King, and it's looking more towards the northwest. So also in the vision, in the view is 907 East King. The next photograph is more of an enlargement of the detail of 909 East King. It's looking from the southwest corner of the property into the front porch area. The third photograph is taken from approximately the very same location, and it's looking down the property line between 907 and 909. You can see very similar patterns of walkways that go beside each building. One lone pine tree, and if you strain your eyes and look between the buildings in the back, you can sort of make out the garage that's back there. The next photograph, we are in the rear yard of 909 East King, and we are looking in a southwesterly direction. Most of the photograph is dominated by the building on at 907. You can see the detail, a little bit more detail of the corner of 909, the rock wall that's mentioned on the plot plan is evident there. It needs a little help. The fifth picture is taken from a vantage point between 909 and 911 East King Street. Again, it's kind of looking in a southwesterly direction across the front porch. Just to demonstrate the condition of and the limited area between the buildings. The last photograph is taken from the rear yard of 909 East King and is looking directly at the rear of the existing structure. You can see the condition of the landscaping, the yard, the rock wall.
907 East King, is that a commercial use?
That is a multifamily use.
And do you know what the use of 911 is?
I do not know. I believe it's residential, but I cannot swear that it is multifamily.
So if you could turn now to Exhibit 4 in the packet. Is that the plan for the proposed development of the site that was prepared by your office?
Yes, it is.
And can you describe the planned improvements?
From a site perspective, in support of the use that Ethan and Cody are proposing, we are showing, we'll start from the north side of the property against Clark Street and work our way to the south into the site. First off would be the removal of the existing stucco garage to allow the expansion of the existing macadam area. As you work your way back towards the rear of the structure, we're showing 7 parking spaces with curb lintels. We're also proposing at the present time a fence along the eastern boundary. On the western boundary, we're extending the existing macadam closer toward the existing structure, proposing some landscape screening on the western boundary. We're also proposing to remove some of the concrete sidewalk, which was evident in the last photograph on the prior exhibit, and replacing some of the broken concrete and sidewalk, which is at the rear of the existing building and on the west side of the rear of the existing building, and creating some green space in that area.
And could, for those members of the board that may have reviewed the plan that was submitted with the application with the 79% impervious coverage, what was changed to reduce to 77%?
Yes, we're down to counting square feet at this point. What we neglected to do is we did not account for the ability to create green space in the area at the very back of the property where the garage was to be torn down. That was not included as part of any new green space when we did the initial calculation. So that's one area, and then the second area is removing some broken concrete along the north side of the back of the building and that existing sidewalk, and replacing it with pavers for access from the proposed parking area to the dwelling.
So I'm going to walk you through the variances that are being requested in connection with this application. So the first variance is from section 28702, and that is to permit the multifamily use in the LC district. Does the LC district permit any residential uses?
It permits a residential use in conjunction with a commercial use in the principal building, and does not permit principal multifamily dwellings or apartment buildings in the LC zone.
So the request is to establish this as a 4-unit apartment building, which is not otherwise a permitted use.
Correct.
Will the project maintain the residential appearance of the building?
Yes, it's my understanding it's the goal of the gentleman who bought it to restore the appearance and not demo any part of the existing structure, and kind of bring it back to glory days in a sense.
Looking at some of the uses that are permitted in the LC district by right, how does this use compare in terms of intensity?
Well, uses by right in the LC district could include anything such as a restaurant, retail, medical office, general office, financial institution. It's my opinion that a residential use as proposed is going to be less traffic intensive from the standpoint of vehicles as well as pedestrians, for it to just be a residential use as opposed to a commercial use.
Is this property in close proximity to land within the R3 zoning district?
It adjoins R3 exists on the north side of the property on the opposite side of Clark Street. So this block from Clark Street down beyond East King Street is LC. Clark Street serving as the dividing line between LC and R3.
And in fact, in the R3 district, you have the ability to do multifamily dwellings as well as conversion of pre-1972 buildings to multifamily dwellings. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I believe one or both of those is a special exception, but you have the opportunity to do that just across Clark Street.
Yes.
The next variance is from section 28704B, table 7-1, and that relates to the maximum lot coverage, which we've talked a little bit about already. What is the maximum lot coverage permitted in the LC district?
It is 70%.
And do you know what the existing coverage on the property is?
It happens to exist at approximately 70% as well.
Okay. And this property is served by public water and sewer?
It is.
And that would be the intention for the 4 units as well?
Yes.
And we've initially requested 79%, but have now reduced down to 77%. Is there any enlargement that's being made to the building?
No.
So really, the additional lot coverage is all associated with attempting to accommodate the parking for the units.
That is correct.
And, you know, if we were converting this to a commercial use, we talked about some of the uses that were permitted, a financial institution, an office, would you be faced with a similar challenge of having to try to provide parking on site?
Yes, I believe we would face very similar challenges and would probably be asking for similar dimensional variances to create off-street parking. I'd like to point out to the board that in this particular area of East King Street, there is no on-street parking available. It is a drive lane.
So the next variance that's requested is from section 280-704C1, table 7-2, and that relates to the side yard setback. So what is the required side yard setback in this zone?
It is 6 feet.
And do the improvements on the property already encroach within that setback?
Many of the improvements already encroach in it. The macadam in the back, the stucco garage, the building itself, 909 East King Street itself encroaches on the side, both side yards actually.
Are you, in your plan, are you increasing the degree of the encroachment, or are you extending it along an existing plane?
Actually, both. On the west side of the property, the concept is to take the existing limits of macadam paving on the west side and extend them to the south towards the existing building. So we're not creating more of an encroachment, but we are covering some grass area and the rest is sidewalk and so forth that needs to be replaced anyway. On the east side, we are encroaching approximately 3.5 feet. It so happens that the macadam that was placed on the property at some point in time does not go across. It's right around at the 6 foot line. So we would encroach approximately 3.5 feet of new encroachment from the existing macadam into the side yard.
And is that necessary to create a sufficient drive aisle and room for maneuverability for the parking?
Yes.
And again, if this were any other use, an office, a bank, it would still require that sort of relief to
Yes.
accommodate the parking. What are you proposing in terms of landscaping or buffering in those 2 side yards?
On the west side, which would be adjoining clearly a multifamily use, there's an existing diagonal stripe vehicle parking area. What we were proposing is to allow there's a pretty significant tree between the building at 909 and the garage that still exists and is shown on the plan at 907. We're proposing some evergreen shrubbery to be placed between the new edge of macadam and the property line to soften that up. On the east side, we are proposing a 6 foot vinyl board fence. It seems to me that as we all know, before long, October, November, it's dark when we leave and dark when we come home. So having a board fence there kind of prevents the headlights and probably helps with any vehicle noise of people parking in there against the property at 911 East King.
I'm going to ask you to just briefly refer to Exhibit 5 in your packet. Is that a detail that the applicant provided of the type of fencing that they're planning to install along that eastern property line?
Yes, Mr. Hirsch provided that. This is what they were looking to install.
In terms of the width of this lot, is this lot non-conforming with respect to the requirements of the LC district?
Yes, the requirements are 40 feet minimum at the front, and then I believe it requires 60 foot wide at the minimum building site.
So suffice it to say, these requirements are contemplating a larger property than what we're dealing with here to provide this buffering.
Apparently so.
Is the narrow side yard that exists and that you're proposing to continue to provide consistent with the neighborhood where the property is located?
Yes.
And if we go back in the packet just briefly to Exhibit 3, which is the photographs, I believe it's the third and fourth photographs. Do those depict the side yard setback there along the, I believe that's the eastern property line?
Yes, the third photograph clearly shows the existing conditions between 907 and 909 East King. And then we go to, yes, the fifth one, and that is clearly showing the conditions between the east side of 909, and it barely touches you can barely see the building at 911 East King, but that's the condition.
So in your opinion, will that condition be improved or enhanced with the landscaping and fencing that's proposed?
It will be enhanced.
So the next variance is from section 280-1303, and that relates to the amount of parking that's provided. How much parking is required for this use?
The way the parking code is outlined in the ordinance, 2 spaces are required for each proposed unit. They are proposing 4, so we would be required to provide 8.
And what is proposed in this plan?
7.
And in addition, in the commercial and other zoning districts, no parking compound is allowed to be closer than 10 feet to any lot line. That's from section 280-1307B. Are we also requiring relief from that section?
Yes.
And again, it would be physically impossible to construct any type of parking on this property that would comply with that requirement.
That is
Parking
correct.
compound.
The lot is less than 40 feet wide, and if you take away 20, goodness sakes,
Is it your understanding that 3 of the apartments proposed are going to be 1-bedroom apartments?
yes,
And so that is one of the reasons that the applicant feels the 7 spaces would be sufficient.
yes.
So finally, you're requesting several variances from Article 14 of the zoning ordinance, and we'll go through those individually. So the first is from 280-1401A, the planting strip requirement, and that section reads, all multifamily dwellings, commercial, industrial, or other non-residential uses shall be separated from all side and rear lot lines and all street rights-of-way lines by a planting strip having a minimum width of 10 feet measured to the lot line. So again, that's sort of a companion section to 280-1307B. Is it possible to provide a 10-foot planting strip on each side of the parking compound here?
No.
Or the residential use?
Or the residential use, no.
The next is from section 280-1402B, and that reads as follows: screening of residential parking compounds from adjoining residential uses. All residential parking compounds with more than 4 spaces shall be screened from adjoining residential uses by a landscape screen. And we are proposing to provide a screen here, but it's not meeting the requirements in the ordinance. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then finally, section 280-1403C, that relates to dumpsters. Can you identify for the board where the dumpster pad is located on the property? Or proposed dumpster pad?
The proposed dumpster pad is located at the end of the proposed macadam. It's about central on the plan. It is towards the rear of the dwelling, but at the southern end of the proposed parking. So tenants would not have to walk far to put their refuse in the dumpster.
And again, the intent is to provide screening along that property line to prevent it from being visible from the adjoining property.
Correct.
But the requirement here is that there be, it could be completely enclosed and screened with a wall or plant screen at least as high as the container. So we're simply asking that relief be granted such that we could construct it in the manner that's shown on the plan.
Correct.
And of course, we're limited in terms of the height of the plantings that we can put along that property line just because of the limited width there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What unique physical circumstances make this property difficult to develop in conformance with the zoning ordinance? I know we've covered a number of them already.
Well, I think the width, the placement of the existing improvements, the building itself, you know, how it's situated on the property, and the fact that the property is long and narrow, it's not conducive to a conventional parking layout.
And in fact, it itself is a non-compliant lot with the zoning
Yes.
ordinance requirements.
Yes.
Would strict application of the regulations in this case create an unnecessary hardship in terms of the reuse, redevelopment of this property?
Yes, it would.
And the majority of the relief that's being requested here is dimensional, is that fair to say?
That is correct.
Were any of the hardships that you described created by the applicant?
No, they don't.
In your opinion, will the variances, if they're granted, have a negative impact on the neighborhood?
No, they will.
Or would they be detrimental to the public welfare in any way?
Not in my opinion. Very similar to the existing neighborhood, especially 907 East King, right beside it.
And in preparing this application, did you endeavor to request the minimum amount of relief that would be necessary to use the building in an appropriate manner for multifamily use?
Yes.
Those are all the questions that I have.
We'll let Township Ms. Piper ask her questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, good evening, Mr. Sneak.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Let me just ask your counsel first, are you going to have any other witnesses other than?
One
Mr.
other,
Sneak?
yes,
Okay,
just one of the property owners.
One of the property
So
owners.
any technical questions would be.
That's fine. I won't ask him about any questions about the purchase of the property then. All right. Mr. Smeag, I just want to start with verifying some of your testimony. I believe your testimony was that the zoning district to the north of this one, of the local commercial, was the R3 residential zoning district.
Yes.
On the other side of Clark Street. I'm going to hand you a copy of the zoning map and ask you to take another look at that and see if you would agree with my assessment that that is actually the R2 zoning district.
Yes. that's the argument.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Just because I'm going to ask you some questions about that particular district, I believe your testimony was that multifamily dwellings are permitted in the R2 district. Is that correct?
Well, I said R3.
Oh, okay. Let me ask my question another way.
Okay.
And I don't want to ask, this is a trick question, but have you had an opportunity to look at the R2 zoning regulations?
No, I have not.
Okay. If I represent to you that multifamily dwellings are permitted within the R2 zoning district, would you have any reason to disagree with that?
No.
Okay. And would you also agree with me that the zoning ordinance provides that for multifamily dwellings with public sewer and public water in the R2 district, that the maximum lot coverage is 50%?
Okay.
All right. And would you also agree that the zoning regulations for the R2 district require that multifamily dwellings have a 25-foot side yard setback?
Wow.
Okay, so certainly different set of
Very
regulations
different.
than the local commercial. Okay. All right. Mr. Smeek, you're familiar that this property was constructed as a single-family residence?
That's my understanding.
Okay, and is it also your understanding that that structure remains in that state as of today?
Yes, and it was uninhabited for quite some time.
Okay, understood. In your evaluation and your work with your clients, were you ever asked to look at configuring this site for continued use of this property as a single-family dwelling?
No,
Okay. Were you ever asked to configure this site assuming something less than 4 dwelling units in this property?
no,
So you were never asked to consider putting in only 2 apartments?
correct.
Okay. So you didn't do any calculations as to what that might look like in terms of parking and setbacks and landscape areas with only 2 dwelling units?
I didn't look at that. I would jump to a conclusion in a sense and say that we would still probably need some of the side dimensional variances. The difference I would sense immediately would be total impervious coverage.
Okay. Would you agree with me, though, that in your capacity as an expert in this area and testifying before zoning hearing boards, that if you were to have designed this site for something less than 4 dwelling units, that you likely would need less zoning relief tonight?
At least in the area of lot coverage.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Would you also agree you would need less of a variance in terms of parking spaces?
Yes.
Okay, because if there were only 2 units, you would only need 4 parking spaces, correct? And do you believe, based on your experience in designing plans of this nature, that if only 2 dwelling units had been planned for, and you only needed 4 parking spaces, you would have required less dimensional variances than is being requested this evening?
Probably.
Okay. All right, I want to turn back to your photographs, which are marked as exhibit number 3. And in particular, the 3rd photograph shows the rear of the building. And I believe it was your testimony that this is not the subject property.
No, we're actually standing on the subject property, so the lower portion of the photograph shows a rock wall, which is dilapidated, which is also shown on the plot plan. So you see just a corner of 909. Most of the photograph is dominated by 907.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that the board's clear as we look at this photograph. This is a picture with the either a porch or a fire escape, I'm not sure quite what it is. This is not the subject property, this is the neighboring property. Okay. And I believe when asked by counsel, you testified that that property at 907 is currently operating as a multifamily property, is that correct?
That is correct. On the very photograph that was just referenced, you can see 4 individual electric meters on the back of the building.
And I believe it was your testimony that you did not know how the property on the other side of 909 East King was being used.
No, I'm not super familiar with that property.
Did you have any opportunity to look at any tax assessment information for that property?
For the neighboring property?
Correct.
No.
Okay. Would it surprise you to learn that that property at 911 East King is actually classified as a single-family dwelling with only 1 family? Okay. I want to clarify the nature of the relief that is needed on the west side of the property, and I'm going to turn back to the plan. I believe your counsel referenced and your testimony may have touched on the fact that there's a large tree that exists along that side property line. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's close to the garage that exists on 907.
Okay. And will that I'm sorry, it's on which side?
The trunk is actually on 909.
Okay.
It's just located closer to that garage, just to give reference to where it's located.
Okay. Because that tree is located on 909, are there any intentions to remove that tree?
Probably prune it up a bit, clean it
Okay.
up.
But as you've designed this plan, there's no intention to remove it? Okay. You've added some shrubbery as we move down that property line.
Mhm.
Okay. can you tell this board exactly what the setback will be with that tree remaining, the trunk of the tree remaining in place and that shrubbery that's there?
It's about 2.5 feet at its narrowest, and it's not parallel to the line. It's so at the north end, it's close to 3 feet wide. And as you get down closer to the building, it's 2.5.
Okay. So are you seeking a variance of the setback, the 6-foot side yard setback to be only 2.5 feet on that side?
Yes.
Okay. And on the eastern side, do I understand your testimony to be that there will be no setback on that side?
There'll be 2.5 feet on that side as well.
Okay. In that 2.5-foot space on the eastern side of the property, is there any ability to install any landscaping? Is there any room?
Well, there's potential. I did not show any. I think there is the potential to show some landscaping. You would want to be pretty particular about what it's going to be, because you're going to have the front end of cars shoving into it, and if it gets too wide at the bottom, if you will, now the back ends of their cars are going to protrude out into the drive lane. So I'd want to be pretty selective about any landscaping proposed. I think it's a bit small to have landscape there.
Okay. Am I correct in the application for the variance of the landscaping buffers, you are seeking 100% variance on that? You don't?
On the east side.
Okay.
Yes.
And on the west side, what type of a variance are you seeking for a landscaping buffer?
Is really only showing landscaping where there's ability to place it between the existing parking lot on 907 East King and the proposed parking area on 909.
Do you have a dimension that you're seeking?
2.5 feet. So 2.5 feet from the required 10-foot wide landscape area.
Turning back to your existing site conditions.
Exhibit 2.
Thank you. And I know these numbers are small, but as I read this plan correctly, am I correct that the current conditions show, at least on the western side of the property, there exists in the area of the parking, where the parking would be, there currently exists a 6-foot setback? Am I reading that correctly on your plan?
I'm showing it. I'm showing the side yard setback, yes.
Okay. And then just above that, it says macadam, and there seems to be a somewhat rectangular, although with a slanted line at the top. Does that actually depict the area of the macadam currently?
That angled area, that angled line you were referring to, that's actually the rear yard setback in that zoning district.
Okay. So does your plan actually depict the area of the current parking or the area of macadam as it currently exists?
Yes, it does. It's a little hard to describe. It is a dashed line which starts at the southwest corner of the stucco garage on 909 and moves sort of at an arc open to the left, and it keeps going over close to
Todd, let me interrupt you. Can you come up and just show the zoning board and everyone, it's the record I'm not gonna see. I kind of sketched it out here, but just so,
You have it drawn correctly, Mr. Yes, yes, you did.
so, there's a dashed line, just so. zoning board, you can pass that down.
Yeah, that's, okay.
It is difficult to see.
There's lots of lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you?
I think I have
Yeah, that's,
Yes, I have
yeah. I got it.
Yes. Thanks. All right, you can continue.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Smake, based on your description of where the current macadam exists, can you explain for the board what the dimensions are between the property line and the beginning of that macadam on both sides?
Of the existing macadam?
Correct.
On the west side, there is a 3-foot dimension from the property line to the existing macadam. On the east side, it appears to be approximately 6 feet from the property line on the east.
And looking at your existing conditions plan, just to the north of the property, there's an area depicted grass. Is that an open space, a grass area?
Yes.
On the plan?
Yes.
And is that going to be eliminated with the proposed plan?
That would be eliminated with the additional macadam proposed for the parking area.
Now, turning to the number of parking spaces, 8 are required, 7 are proposed. Did you do any evaluation as to what the availability of off-street parking is in this area?
No, I didn't.
And you've been to the property, is that correct?
Yes,
Would you agree with me there's no parking in front of the building on East King Street?
I would agree.
Okay. Would you also agree with me that to the rear of the property on Clark Street, there is very limited on-street parking?
It's busy.
Okay. Now, Mr. Smeek, you offered some testimony about other permitted uses in this district, and I believe you touched on medical offices and regular offices as other possibilities. Did you do any evaluation or calculations as to what the parking requirements would be for either a medical office or an office?
No, I did not.
So if a proposed user of this building were to desire to use it as an office, you didn't do any calculations as to what the parking would be based on the square footage of the property, of the dwelling? Okay,
I did not.
all right. So am I correct, other than evaluating a multifamily building with 4 units, you didn't evaluate any other possible uses of this building?
That is a correct statement.
Okay. As we look at the proposed plan, the dumpster is going to be situated pretty far into the property. Am I correct in looking at that?
Yes.
The dumpster is up close to the home and fairly set back from Clark Street. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you do any calculations as to, and evaluations as to how a trash truck is going to access that dumpster?
It's unclear right now how large the dumpster would need to be. At this point, I'm working with the idea that it would be a tip-up dumpster. Truck would have to come straight in, open the gates to where the dumpster is kept, tip, and then back up and back out onto Clark Street. There's no way to turn around a dumpster or a dump truck or a trash truck. I'm sorry.
So in terms of screening of the dumpster, you show 2 plants, it appears, on the western side of the dumpster. Am I reading that correctly?
That's what's shown on the plan. I would believe the township has requirements for an actual dumpster screen. It's typically a wood or vinyl fence that would have to be constructed around it. I did not show that on the plan. Again, I wasn't completely sure of the size. I think I'm generous on the concrete pad size. It'd be great if that could be even smaller, but
Are you seeking relief tonight from the zoning requirements as they relate to dumpsters?
I guess in a sense, because of where we're showing it to be placed, yes, it would still need to be screened.
So I want to make sure I understand what the request is this evening. The section of the ordinance, and I'm not trying to make
No,
this a
I
trick
know.
question for you, but the section of the ordinance provides that dumpsters and waste receptacles for non-residential uses in multifamily dwelling units shall be completely enclosed and shall be screened from any adjoining public rights-of-way and/or properties by a fence, wall, or plant screen at least as high as the container.
Correct.
So my question, so that this board can entertain that request, what specifically are you seeking are you seeking a complete variance from any requirements?
We may be able to withdraw that based on the changes we've made to the plan if they're willing to fence the dumpster.
Yeah. I'm sure we're going to have to fence the dumpster.
So are you withdrawing the request for that variance?
We can withdraw the request for that variance.
Ms. Pfeiffer, which section are you looking at?
I'm looking at 280, 1403C.
And so we had added some landscaping to the plan from the previous version that was submitted with the application. And just in discussion here, agreeing that there could be some kind of fencing that would go around the remainder of the dumpster, and then that would eliminate the need for that variance entirely.
So just so the record's clear, the applicant is agreeing to fence the dumpster area and withdrawing the request from any relief from 1403. Is that correct?
Yes, I just want to make sure we have the right section,
Yeah.
because there are
looks like
several
it.
sections under 1403.
While we're talking about the dumpster, is it accessible if there are cars parked
Yes.
to get back there with the truck and,
Yes.
okay.
That is, it's a 280-1403C. That can be withdrawn.
All right, I don't have any further questions for this witness.
Okay, thank you. Board members have any questions? I have one or two questions of clarification, and I just want to be sure I understand, and you can look at the existing, or the zoning exhibit, I think it's exhibit 4. When you look at the adjoining property to the east and the west, are they essentially duplex type units? Is 911 actually 2 parcels or 1 parcel? In the same way, it looks like there's a 907 East King Street and a 905 East King Street. I'm just trying to understand, are the adjoining parcels, is the house on a single lot, or are they both like duplex houses? You don't know? Okay,
I don't know.
I mean, I'm just trying to get my bearings on the two properties, and if you look at Exhibit A to your application, it just looks like the county GIS has a line going down through the middle of those.
That's correct. Our survey plan reflects what's on the parcel.
They're clearly separate tax parcels.
Or, to Dwight's point, they were at one time.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get a handle if how they're being used. I mean, we know the one on 907 looks like it has apartments from the picture.
I have the tax parcel information for 9/11, which
Oh,
I
do you?
can mark as an exhibit if that would be helpful
Yeah,
to
I
the
think that'd
board.
be fine.
Okay,
We'll mark that as Township Exhibit 1.
okay.
This is duplex. Here.
Well, that's what I thought too, but it looks like the tax parcel.
This would be a single.
This is single home.
I know, that's why I don't quite understand. And one other question, I'm just looking at your proposed parking lot, I understand 2.5 feet on the eastern side. How far is the edge of the building to the eastern property line?
It's about 2 feet.
You said 2 feet?
It's about 2 feet.
Is the kind of the diagonal line, is that the footer basically of the property? If you look at the house, it looks like there's a diagonal line within 2 lines that looks like it goes around the edge of the.
That's to illustrate the foundation of that house, of that home.
And so if you look at the edge of the house to the edge of the property line, is the parking lot any closer to the edge of the property line than the house?
No.
What about on the west side?
On the west side, the parking lot is created by extending where the existing macadam is. The home is roughly 5.5 feet off of the western property level.
All right, I think those are all the questions. Any redirect?
Just briefly, so just to clarify some of the questions that the solicitor was asking. In terms of the side yard setbacks, there are already encroachments in both side yard setbacks that extend beyond what you are proposing to do with the parking lot, is that correct?
Yes.
The township solicitor asked you some questions about other permitted uses, other types of uses that could have been done here. So she asked you specifically about a 2-family dwelling, about a single-family dwelling. I'm showing you a copy of the local commercial regulations. Are either 2-family dwellings or single-family dwellings permitted uses in the zoning district?
They are not permitted uses by right.
Are they by special exception?
No.
So if this were to be turned into a 2-family, that would require a variance, correct?
Yes.
If it were to be turned into a single family, it would require a variance, correct?
It's my understanding, yes, because it's been uninhabited for so long.
So essentially that would have been a non-conforming use, but it's been abandoned at this point in time.
Correct.
There were also some questions that the solicitor asked you about parking requirements. So I'm going to show you the section of the ordinance that deals with parking requirements, section 280-1303. So what are the requirements for an office building? Parking requirements.
Office establishment, 1 space for each 300 square feet of gross floor area.
Do you know roughly how many square feet this building is?
I do not know off the top of my head.
Would you say it is at least 2,000 square feet?
With all the floors, yes.
And so, based on that requirement, you're looking at a minimum of 6 parking spaces, and that's being generous.
Correct.
What about the medical office use?
medical clinic or medical office, 4 spaces for each licensed medical professional engaged in the practice at the clinic, plus 1 space for each employee on duty at one time.
And another use that's permitted in this district is a restaurant. What are the parking requirements for a restaurant?
Restaurant, 1 space for each 4 seats of planned capacity, plus 1 space for each 2 employees on duty.
So suffice it to say, if any of those uses were proposed instead of the multifamily dwelling, it's very likely we would be here requesting parking relief, perhaps even more parking relief than we're requesting today. Is that correct?
Yes.
I don't have any additional questions.
Board members have any questions? Okay.
Not at this time.
Okay. Want to come up, Cody?
Do you want me to read
You guys can pick. All right. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Ethan Summers.
And are you and Cody Hurst the owners of the property at 909 East King Street?
Yes.
When did you purchase the property?
December of last year.
And what is your understanding of the history of the property in terms of how it was used before you bought it?
So it's been abandoned for nearly 10 years, and before that, it appears to have been a boarding or multi-use house.
Can you describe the condition of the property? The board's seen photos of the exterior, but what about the interior of the property?
There's significant damage from a water leak on the 3rd floor that went down through the levels of the house and did damage.
So what level of remediation is necessary here, even if you were just converting it back to a single family home?
I would say extreme.
Why did you feel that this property would be ideal for conversion into a multifamily?
So the amount of work that we would need to put into it wouldn't make financial sense for us to make it a single double or, a 3-unit apartment.
So essentially, in order to remediate this structure, you really need to be able to have the 4 units in it to incur those costs and to be able to absorb that. Is it your understanding that there's some historical significance to this dwelling?
Yeah, absolutely.
And are you in conversation with the Historic Preservation Trust about how that character can be preserved?
Yeah.
And you're open to continuing to explore that?
Yep.
I'm going to ask you to look at Exhibit 6 in the packet. Are those some proposed floor plans that you had drawn up for the 4 units in the building?
Yes.
And how many bedrooms is each of the units?
There are 3 units with 1 bedroom and 1 unit with 2 bedrooms.
And these are intended to be conceptual at this point in time, is that fair to say?
Yeah.
And it's your understanding that you would have to comply with any building code requirements in terms of transitioning the building into a 4-unit
Yes.
structure?
Yes.
Do you know how the property at 911 East King is used?
I know it was for sale not long ago. I believe it was also a boarding house with multi-units.
I don't have any additional questions.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Summers. My understanding is you purchased the property in December, but am I correct, you purchased it based on an auction that took place in November? Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay, we have a court reporter, so it's important all your answers
Yes.
be verbal. Thank you. Did you review the information as it was advertised for auction prior to bidding on the property?
Which information?
Did you review the information that was provided by the auctioneer?
Yeah.
Okay. And I understand that Home Sale Realty Auctions handled the auction?
Yeah.
Okay. So you looked at the advertisement that was online?
Mhm.
Is that
Yes.
Okay. And would you agree with me that at all times it was advertised as a single-family residence?
I don't remember.
Okay. Would you agree it was never advertised as a multifamily dwelling?
I don't know.
Okay. Make this township 2.
This township
2.
2.
And we'll do that copies.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Summers, I will represent to you that this is a copy of the ad that I obtained from the auctioneer's website. I'll give you a moment to look at this. Does this look familiar to you?
Yeah,
Does this look like the ad for the property that you eventually bid on?
yes.
Okay. And am I correct, you were not the only bidder on this property?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, and if you turn to the second page of Township Exhibit 2, you'll see that the auctioneer's website has the bidding history. And is it correct you were the winning bidder at $170,000?
Yes.
Okay, and that the bid started at $110,000?
Yes.
So you'd agree there was some interest in the property? Is that a
Yes.
yes? Okay. Turning back to the first page, if you look in the middle, the description paragraph, do you see the language that says, it will require major renovation, crucial updates including the furnace, the water heater, and electrical panel have already been completed, providing a solid starting point. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you agree with me that the sentence before that indicates that the property has 2,800 square feet of living space with 5 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, and built on a foundation of strong, timeless bones? Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And at the end of the paragraph, would you agree with me that it says that this is your opportunity this is a chance to reclaim a piece of local character and transform it into your own custom residence?
Yes.
Okay. So again, going back to my question, there's nothing in this advertisement that indicated the property had been used as a boarding house or multifamily structure?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Now, your testimony when you were asked questions by your attorney was that it would not make financial sense to renovate this property as a single-family dwelling. Am I correct? That's your
Yes.
assessment?
Yes.
Okay. Is it also your assessment it wouldn't make financial sense to renovate it as a 2-unit dwelling?
Correct.
Okay. How about 3 units?
We believe to fix the house to a point that it is at a safe spot for people to live in, it would take substantial money to be put into it. So we believe that 4 units is our best bet.
Okay. And you need 4 units in order to maximize your return on the property? Okay. And you did buy this as an investment property, correct?
Correct.
You don't have any intention to live in the
Correct.
property? Okay. Did you do any exploration with the township prior to bidding on the property as to what the permitted uses were?
We looked them up ourselves, but we didn't talk to anybody.
Okay. At any time, did you consider any other potential uses for the property, such as an office or medical office?
No, we did not.
Okay. You have proposed only 7 parking spaces, and as I understand it, 3 of the apartments will permit 2 vehicles, one apartment will only permit 1. Will you
Mhm.
have lease restrictions that limit parking for your residents, for your tenants?
Possibly. I don't know. We haven't talked about that yet.
Okay. Did you ever consider restricting the parking and the lease arrangements to only 1 parking space per unit?
There are, 3 units that are 1-bedroom apartments, so we thought that it was acceptable to provide 1 parking spot for those units.
Okay. So the 3 units that have only 1 bedroom, is it your intention to restrict those apartments so that the tenants only have 1 vehicle?
No, we are trying to provide as many parking spots as what's listed by code for the apartments. So each apartment requires 2, so we were trying to get as close to that as possible, but we thought it was acceptable to have 7 parking spots because 3 of the units are studio apartments or 1-bedroom apartments.
Okay. Will the spots be assigned to the apartments?
maybe. We don't have plans for that yet.
Okay. So you don't have any plans to put it in your lease, you don't have any plans to assign the spots. How is this board to have assurance that there's gonna be adequate parking at the site?
By the 7 spaces that we will add to the property.
Okay. What is the on-street parking like in this area?
Very busy. There's no parking in the front of the property, and as stated, there's very little parking available on Clark Street and over here.
Okay, so where will the guests park when they come to the property?
I guess, like, they'll find a spot on the street.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Board members? If the parking's not assigned and someone has, say that there's 4 tenants with 2 cars, is it just gonna be first come, first serve, or how's that gonna work?
It'd probably work best to write into the lease that each unit gets a set parking spot, and then for one of the single bedroom apartments, they'll just receive 1 parking spot. So that's something we'd probably work into the lease when we would get to that point. So it probably would make sense to have numbered or assigned parking spaces for each tenant.
And are you willing to limit the 1-bedroom units to 1 car
Yes.
and assign those spaces so it's clear which space they have? And then the 2-bedroom would get 2.
Correct.
With 2 visitor or 2 guests or unmarked spots.
Yeah.
Your floor plans show a 3rd floor plan. Is that currently, the prior use, was that currently used, the 3rd floor, or is that, sometimes older homes have a 3rd floor, but you go up there and there's not really a living space.
Right, yeah, those 2 bedrooms are existing, and there are 3 kitchens in the property right now, which leads us to believe that it was a multi-use structure. So I don't know that we have an existing plan of the interior right now, but there is 2 kitchens on the 2nd floor and 1 on the 1st floor. Or sorry, there's 2 on the 1st floor and 1 on the 2nd floor.
In terms of the number of units, there's no consideration of reducing it from 4 to something below that.
We are trying to get to a safe spot, just so when we're putting the money into it to develop the property and bring it back to life, we don't get short and have to stop mid-process.
These are all the questions that I have. Any redirect?
No redirect.
I have a question. Entryway, how people, are they going to get into their individual apartments?
Yeah, so there's an entrance in the front. At the moment, that is the entrance into the 1st floor, and then there's a staircase shown on that. And so there would be a wall that we would add next to that stairway, so people could get up to the 2nd floor to those units as well. So they would all be divided.
Okay, and then up to the 3rd floor, I take it it's...
There would be another divide at the staircase. You can kind of see it, I guess, on the drawing there, that there would be, it would be walled off as well.
So the entrance would be in the front, there'd be no entrance in the back?
Correct, there would be, into the apartment number 1, there is a side door at the top of the kitchen there that enters. And the rear, there is an entrance into apartment 2 in the rear.
again, I understand this is conceptual, obviously you
Mhm.
follow any fire codes and any requirements
Yeah.
as far as.
Yeah.
Okay. Claudia, anything else?
Nothing further.
Any objections to any of the exhibits being admitted?
No.
Okay, so township 1 and 2 and applicants
1 through 6.
1 through 6 will be admitted into the record. Do you have? Yeah,
This
that,
is
yeah.
1 and 2.
That's good, thanks. Ms. Piper, do you have anything on behalf of the township you'd like to
I
present?
have no testimony, just some argument when we're ready.
Right. So I think at this point, we have
Do you have
everything.
any other witnesses?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
All right, if applicant and the township are all done presenting, if you each want to provide a little summation here, we'd be happy to hear that. And then the board can decide what you want to do. So, who wants to go first?
I'm curious to hear the township's position. It would be
Sure,
helpful to me,
sure.
so.
Certainly not trying to hide the ball, so. First of all, I want to hit a point that Attorney Shank brought up at the beginning of her presentation, and she referenced the county's housing vacancy rates. The township is certainly sympathetic to that and acknowledges that, but unfortunately, that is not the legal standard that controls your decision this evening. That is certainly a sympathetic factor, and the township certainly appreciates that. But the township's position is the use that's been presented to you tonight, 4 units in this original single-family dwelling, is not an appropriate use. It is a very large ask. The township's position is the applicant has not demonstrated their entitlement to a variance. And keep in mind, you have a couple things in this case. You have a use variance, which is an extremely high standard for the applicant to overcome. The applicant has to demonstrate that the physical characteristics of the property are such that it could not be used in any case for any permitted purpose. There are a number of permitted purposes within the local commercial district that this property could be outfitted for. The applicant is not proposing any of those. This is a use variance. It is something that has not been contemplated by the township for this particular district. Or the the applicant has to demonstrate that the characteristics of the property are such that the lot has no value or only a distressed value for any purpose permitted by the ordinance. The applicant has to show that hardship is unique or particular, or that the property is distinct, or the property is distinguishable based on that hardship. As demonstrated by the testimony this evening, this is one of many properties along that row of East King Street that are in a similar position. There's been no testimony presented by the applicant that those other similar properties, although they may be multifamily, are operating at the very high level of having 4 units. As demonstrated by the applicant's own testimony, we're well aware of this property was being advertised when they submitted its bid and ended up prevailing and purchasing the property. It was advertised, as you'll see in Township Exhibit 2, as a single-family dwelling. The hardship is at best self-inflicted because the applicants decided to purchase a property, did not consult with the township as to the permitted uses, and then come before you after its purchase asking for 4 dwelling units. The applicant, when pressed tonight, has indicated there was never an intention to have anything less than 4 units. The applicant's own testimony, it would not make financial sense for them to develop the property for anything less than 4 units. That, I submit to you, is not the appropriate standard by which you judge this case. The case law is clear, and your solicitor will advise you on that, that choosing to maximize profitability does not create a hardship for the applicant. That is not a proper consideration. So the township's position this evening is the applicant has failed to meet its burden. The township is certainly sympathetic to the desire for multifamily uses, but this is not the minimum relief necessary in order to properly use the property. The applicant is willingly dismissed tonight any consideration of something less than the 4 units. So based on the application as it has been presented and not revised, the township would ask that you deny the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Piper. Ms. Shane?
Yeah, so we understand that this is a large ask. We're certainly not contesting that. You know, Attorney Pfeiffer points out that in order to be entitled to a use variance, you basically have to show that the property has no value or a distressed value for the currently permitted uses. I think it's fair to say that that is the case here. This property has been vacant for over a decade, and before that it was used as a boarding house. The properties in the immediate vicinity appear to be used for purposes otherwise not in compliance with the zoning ordinance, as multifamily buildings, as boarding houses. You have a vacant, distressed building within your township, and you have a property owner that is willing to renovate it, invest significant funds to renovate it, and turn it into much needed housing. So, I struggle with what the township's goal would be in opposing this application and preventing this from moving forward. I don't think there's a lot of logic there, because then you're left with what you started with, which is a vacant building that really doesn't have any practical purpose. There's no one here from the community to oppose the application. I would guess that most of the neighboring property owners, to the extent that their residents occupying their own structures, would be glad to have this property rehabbed and taken out of a vacant condition. The majority of the variances that we're asking for tonight are dimensional in nature. That is a lower standard of relief than a use variance for us to prove. And most of these variances would be required no matter how this property was used. If you try to picture this property as an office or a medical office or for any of the permitted uses, you can see from a dimensional perspective, you would need significant relief for the parking, you'd need relief for the impervious coverage. The property is already within the side yard setbacks. The building is within the side yard setback. And very simply, this property existed prior to the local commercial district regulations, and it does not fit well within them. And so really any development of this property is going to require substantial relief. And so we propose to you this evening that we have in fact met our burden. I recognize that a financial hardship is not a hardship under the case law, but I do want to submit to the board that I think you can take practical matters into consideration when you're evaluating the case, and anybody that's going to invest this much money into a property that's in this state of disrepair is going to have to receive some kind of return on that investment. There's a reason it's sat vacant for 10 years, and I'd ask you to consider that in your deliberation.
All right, anything else? So board members, we can make a decision tonight. You can make a decision tonight. We can close the record, and you can take up to 45 days to render a decision. I'm assuming there's no interest in keeping the record open for discussion among the township and the applicant.
I was just going to ask that.
That would be the applicant's call.
I mean, if there's something that the township, we've not received any, indication from the township of what would be acceptable to
I
it.
suspect the applicant would have to come back with something below 4 units. So I just asked that question before we close the record. And if we want to go off the record and take a break, happy to do that.
We can take a short break so I can talk
Okay,
to
let's
my
go
husband.
off the record and we'll let council to keep the record open.
Okay, we'll take
here and just see if there's any interest in leaving the record open, or, yeah, go ahead.
So I did talk to my clients, you know, they would be willing to, and I guess we are requesting to amend the application to make the request for 3 units rather than 4. All of the rest of the relief would remain the same. I think at this point, we're still assuming that we would construct the 7 parking spaces just so that there would be ample parking. So the parking variance would not be necessary. The dimensional relief would all be necessary. It's my understanding that the township's position remains unchanged at 3 units. They're still opposed to the application, but that was something my clients were willing to do, hopefully to make the board's decision a little bit easier. They noted to me the building already has 3 kitchens in it, so it would be in keeping with, you know, the way it's been used historically, or at least appears to have been used historically. So that would be our amendment to our application, and with that, we would request that the record be closed.
If I may respond.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the issue with that is you're amending an application. We don't have any testimony to overcome the issues. I still don't think the applicant has met their burden of proving that this is a minimum relief necessary. They certainly haven't overcome the testimony that this is a strictly financial decision, which again, as your solicitor will tell you, is not an appropriate standard by which to judge this application. So if the applicant wishes to amend and rest their case on that, that's fine. My argument remains the same. They still haven't met their burden, and you should deny the application.
So I think before we close the record, the board should make a motion to accept the amendment to reduce it to 3 units, if you're inclined to do that. So somebody can make that
Yeah.
motion. So
The board moves to grant the applicant's request to amend the application to reflect a request for 3 units rather than the original 4 requested units.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now the board moves to close the record. Second.
Sorry, second.
That wasn't me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, record is now closed. Further, I think the board will make a motion to continue the matter until the next regularly scheduled township meeting, which is August 25th, 2026 at 7 p.m., at which time the board will announce its decision in the matter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Peggy, just have to be given the...
And
Second.
there being no